right, welcome to the February 22nd meeting of the Lincoln City Council. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a period of silent meditation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. The order of business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you are speaking in favor or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading on the second and last meetings of the month. Immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on an issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. If you need an agenda, we have some in the back of the room, or you can follow along on your smartphone by going to lincoln.ne.gov and clicking on City Council and our meeting schedule. Parking passes, Teresa has them, or we have them in the City Council office. Call the first item, please.
Okay, first, we would request those giving testimony to please clearly state your name and address and to sign in on the sign-in sheet laying on the podium. First will be our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 through 18.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would ask that item number 3 be removed from the consent agenda and be heard with item number 24, which is ordinance 16-9, for action to be delayed on 16R35, which is item 3, until 2/29/16.
Second.
Second by Carl. Discussion. Okay, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak on an item on our consent agenda, since I don't see the mayor here for awards of excellence, please come forward. All right.
All right, if not, we can vote on these items. Items 1 and 2 were introduced by Gaylor Baird.
So moved.
Second.
Be 1 and 3 or 1 and
1 and 2. 3 has been delayed to have public hearing with item.
I clicked the
24.
wrong item on that. Okay. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, Roy? All right, call the roll, please.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Then items 11 through 15 were introduced by Lamb.
So moved.
Second?
Second by Jane. Discussion. All right, call the roll, please.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then are our public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward, raise their right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, witnesses shall state their names and addresses. Applicants or witnesses are not required to stay for the voting session. I'll call items 19 and 20 together. They're the application of venue, restaurant, and lounge for a Class C liquor license at 129 North 10th Street, Suite 115, and the related manager application of Justin Cooksley. Raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you.
Michael Ritter, 9712 Andre Circle, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68526.
Justin Cooksley, 6015 Sumner Street, 68506.
All right, tell us what we're doing here.
We are taking over the Jasmine Room at the Grand Manse and continuing what the Jasmine Room's always done, but we'll have control of it.
All righty. Questions? Carl.
So this is an event space. This isn't a restaurant where
Not a
everyone can
restaurant,
go.
just an event
Okay, all
space.
right. And I assume since you guys are in the food business, it will be your food.
Yep.
Will you prepare there, or will you bring it from?
We just built a new catering kitchen just off the back of our restaurant, and so all the food will be cooked there and transferred.
Okay.
There's just like a small prep kitchen in the Grand Manse or the Jasmine Room.
Okay.
So, but
Welcome to
we'll
downtown.
we'll obviously push our food, of course, but we'll the options there if somebody wants to bring in another
Okay.
vendor and
All right.
stuff. So.
Good, thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to these items, please come forward. All right, next item, please.
Next is item 21, the manager application of Jason Johnson for JJ's Lounge LLC, doing business as The Lounge at 2001 West O Street. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you.
Jason Johnson, 930 Manchester Drive, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68528. I'm the owner of The Lounge at 2001 West O Street, and I am applying for the manager application to have myself listed as the manager. I've had a manager in the past, which was terminated, and I've just decided to take the management course myself and have myself as the manager on file.
Okay, questions? John?
In looking at some of the history the police department provided us, there was an item about a little under a year ago that came up. Is that any bearing on the integrity of your business?
No, I don't believe so. I'm not sure which item that would be,
Well, there's
Joe.
one, you didn't have proof of financial responsibility. Was that just an oversight on getting some certification, or?
No, I guess I'm not aware of what that is. I would have to, I don't recall anything a year ago, but
Last April 2nd, there was a bench warrant issued.
what's that?
A bench warrant was issued.
Oh, for myself?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said it was referring to the lounge. No, and I believe that situation was a SR22 insurance that I was required to cover, and there was a misunderstanding, but I had that taken care of because I had insurance for it, if I do remember correctly, if that's what it was.
Okay,
Only
thank you.
thing I can recall anyway.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Do I need to fill out the sheet? Last time I came back to
That
do
would
it.
be
Yes,
great.
just
Thank
I
you.
noticed the last
name
people
and
didn't.
address. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak to this application, please come forward.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of items 19, 20, and 21.
Second by Lyrian. Discussion. All right, Teresa, call the roll, please.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then, our public hearing ordinance's second reading. Item 23, amending Chapter 9.44 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to fireworks by amending Section 9.44.020.
I think we skipped one, Teresa.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, public hearing resolutions.
22.
Item 22, accepting the report of new and pending claims against the city and approving disposition of claims set forth for the period of January 16 through 31st, 2016.
All right, anyone wishing to speak to a claim, please come forward. All right. We'll move on to the next item.
All right, now we can go on to our ordinance's second reading. Item 23 is amending Section 9.44.020 to increase the penalty for the unlawful use of fireworks within the Lincoln city limits.
All right, do we have somebody to testify on this one? This is the code cleanup section.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, Lincoln City Attorney. This is part of our code, well, it's kind of associated with the code cleanup. This is something that Councilman Christensen brought forward, related somewhat, I think, to sky lanterns. which were made illegal within the city of Lincoln a short time ago and are now illegal across the state of Nebraska, or will be when the new state law goes into effect. And I believe the rationale for this is it's not easy, although not impossible, not easy to catch people setting off illegal fireworks, particularly sky lanterns, because they can drift so far. And so this is an effort to raise the penalty somewhat to get people's attention for those times that we are able to catch them and get a conviction. Raises the minimum just from $25 to $100. Maximum remains at $500.
Questions for Jeff? All right, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak to this item, please come forward. Seeing none, next item, please.
All right, next I'll call items 24 and 3. 24 is an ordinance amending Title 4 of the Lincoln Municipal Code by adding a new Chapter 4.68 relating to boards and commissions to establish the Pinnacle Bank Arena Advisory Board and repealing Section 2.10.040 relating to Pershing Manager authority from Title 2 of the Lincoln Municipal Code. And item 3 then is repealing Resolution A-87447 adopted July 22nd, 2013, relating to the Pinnacle Bank Arena Advisory Committee due to the committee's functions being transferred to the Pinnacle Bank Arena Advisory Board established in the Lincoln Municipal Code.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, Lincoln City Attorney. Again, this is somewhat of a cleanup item. When the Pinnacle Bank Arena opened, there was an advisory board set up by resolution. This is a part of our attempt to get all of the significant advisory boards within the code rather than having set out someplace in resolution. And so this ordinance change will put this into the code. There's an accompanying resolution that has been continued until next week for voting that gets rid of the one that was set up by resolution. The other cleanup item within this item has to do with the authority given to the Pershing Auditorium manager to enter into agreements on behalf of the city. Since Pershing Civic Auditorium is no longer operating, we wanted to clean up the code and get rid of that provision.
Questions for Jeff? Carl?
Thank you. Jeff, it looks like changes the name of this group from a committee to a board. What, is there any legal significance in the definition of those two?
No, there isn't.
Other questions? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to these two items, please come forward.
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. Is this an attempt to establish a board? Well, you have a board, but it hasn't been very visible. Similar to the Mecca board? Are you giving it more power?
We can get an answer for that for you here. I don't believe we're establishing a Mecca board here.
It's not like the Mecca board in Omaha.
No,
Okay. It's just the same board that you had before.
pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just moving it from a resolution into the city code.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item, please come forward. All right, did I say anything incorrectly? Do we need staff questions? All right, cool. All right, we'll move on to the next item.
All right, next is item 25, an ordinance amending Chapter 2.76 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the personnel system and Chapter 5.04 relating to alcoholic liquor.
This is part of the annual code cleanup. Two separate provisions were put into this one ordinance change. The first one has to do with removing a section having to do with alcohol liquor. The current code section refers to another code section that has already been repealed, so we wanted to take out a reference to a no longer existing code section. And the second has to do with holiday hours for employee classifications N and X, which are non-union city employees who are given the hours and benefits and holidays of union members. So we wanted to line up their holiday hours with what is given in the contract, city contract. City contract was adopted. We didn't line those up. Now we wanted to come back and clean this up.
Jane?
I'm just reading, so the day after Thanksgiving is considered a paid holiday.
Yes, at least under some contracts.
Okay.
Cindy?
Thank you. On 5.04.250, I see where we eliminated except as provided in this section. That's the section that no longer exists, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so am I to understand then there are no exceptions to the fact that it's unlawful for any liquor licensee or any employees to permit any minor to deliver alcoholic liquor?
Yes, I believe that's right under city code and has been. It was, since that code didn't exist, there was no exception for it even
Okay,
before this passes.
thank you.
Yes,
Other questions?
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item, please come forward. All right, next item, please.
All right, next is item 26, an ordinance amending section 14.80.080 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to Director of Public Works and Utilities to have general control of sidewalks, to remove the requirement that property owners are responsible for the repair and replacement of adjoining sidewalks in order to bring the code into conformity with the city charter, Article 8, Section 19, and repealing Section 14.80.080 of the Lincoln Municipal Code as hitherto existing.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, Lincoln City Attorney. This is a code cleanup that really seems a lot more exciting, and let me tell you, understand why we're doing it. The voters of the city of Lincoln voted quite some time ago, actually, to say that the maintenance of city sidewalks is the responsibility of the city, not the abutting landowners. This code section, for some reason, managed to survive for a number of years with no one realizing that it actually is in violation of the charter because nobody was actually enforcing it. Now we're getting that code section cleaned up with this.
Questions? All right, thank you
Thank you.
very much. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item, please come forward. Seeing none, next item, please.
All right, next is an ordinance amending Chapter 27.06 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to use groups by amending Section 27.06.170 to revise the use group table to reflect that current heavy commercial services use group for many warehouses are a permitted conditional use in the B5 district as provided in Section 27.62140B2 and repealing Section 27.06.170 of the Lincoln Municipal Code as hitherto existing.
This is Jeff Kirkpatrick, Lincoln City Attorney. We also included this in our technical amendments. If you want to have a more of a policy-oriented discussion about why we're making this change for many warehouses, that would be something that David Carey, I'm sure, would be happy to visit with you about at length. The only change that this does make is it adds C to the B5 districts for many warehouses. And I think this is something that the council has seen before in it previously for a variance being granted. And I think the planning department's conclusion was it shouldn't need to be a variance. It should be something that should be allowed within the code.
Okay, questions? All right, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak to this item, please come forward.
Terry Pope Gonzalez, 349 South First Street. I'm just making sure that this does not have anything to do with the mess that's over by my house. Jeff?
I don't believe so.
It says many warehouses. This is heavy commercial. You guys okayed them to be there.
Her question is whether it has anything to do with the development behind her house.
It's not a development, it's a company.
Many warehouses, I think by definition, are the kind of storage facilities that a lot of people rent you've got a lot of storage units within one mini warehouse, as opposed to having, for example, a large business that has a warehouse or a storage facility or a shop. And I think that's what she's referring to, is just a large shop.
Okay, so
This wouldn't fit within that definition.
so it's different definition for the lot that's behind her home.
Exactly,
And
yes,
you're absolutely sure.
yes.
Well, and it's also referring to the
B5.
B5 district, which I'm not sure is the zoning.
I couldn't speak to the zoning in her
Is-
neighborhood.
But hers would probably be
David can-
industrial.
Yeah, there's industrial.
Matter anyway, because it's not a mini warehouse.
David Carey with the Planning Department. Yeah, that's another point to be made here, is that this is applying to the B5 zoning district. That is not B5 zoning over in that area.
Thank you.
Question.
They're not zoned industrial there either. You guys let them be a special zone, which could be the B5, because I don't have my paperwork with me. So no, that area is not zoned residential where you guys let them be. It's right next to Schwarzkopf Park. So that's what I said. I don't want to come back here again and act a fool, because I'm not going to bring some toilet paper where I can be viral again, because I don't like that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak to this item, please come forward. All right, next item, please.
All right, next I'll call items 28 through 30. They are approving the Antelope Square redevelopment agreement between the city and Antelope Square LLC relating to the redevelopment of property bounded by 22nd Street on the west, 23rd Street on the east, R Street on the north, and Q Street on the south for the construction of 24 attached single-family dwellings, amending the fiscal year 15-16 CIP to authorize and appropriate $825,000 in TIF funds for the Antelope Square redevelopment project, and authorizing the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the Antelope Square redevelopment project.
Members of the City Council, David Landis, Urban Development Department Director, the applicant in this case. This is a project that you would have seen February 1st, in that we did a redevelopment plan amendment at that time and gave a rough definition of what was to be expected, and this is the fruition of those conversations. This is the project area that we're talking about, and Antelope Square redevelopment agreement is for the creation of 24 units of housing, and this, I think, is probably the best, among the best pictures of what we're going to be seeing in the area. There's been work in this area in the past. NeighborWorks was instrumental in creating, I believe, 18 residences about a block away from this. So they've been working in the area assiduously. In this case, a surety has been involved as well, and those two entities have created an LLC that is undertaking this proposition. In part because some of these face Antelope Valley, but also because this is the neighborhood in which a surety and NeighborWorks are concerned. 10 of the units will be for affordable housing, and this city has a well-documented need for more affordable housing in the city. It will be for home ownership, not for rental. That makes a difference in a neighborhood. We believe strongly in the Urban Development Department that we like very much home ownership. We think it promotes stability. People who care about their neighbors and the neighborhood, they join PTAs, they join neighborhood associations, and their own long-term economic well-being is invested in the neighborhood. The developer has had 2 neighborhood meetings, one with the Antelope Village Association, that's the adjoining project, and the Hawley Neighborhood Association. Both groups sent letters of support when the project went before the Planning Commission. It's been to the Urban Design Committee a couple of times. It reviewed the project in January, and then it came back last week, and they voted unanimously to approve the project and the nature of what was being done. In the interaction with the neighborhood, one of the things that came out was the desire for porches. Porches are kind of a throwback to an earlier time, but porches also, because they have people using them, promote more eyes on the street. more interaction of what's going on in the neighborhood, and it promotes safety in that way. There are 2 phases for the project, but both phases are covered by this redevelopment agreement, and this agreement will cover all of the 24 units that we're talking about. There is a phase 1 and a phase 2. Hopefully, particularly if the market proves to be as good as the last project did, they will be done simultaneously. If not, there'll be a slight delay between the 2, but this agreement covers both. The private investment here is about $5.1 million. The TIF is $825,000. In the phase 1, it goes for site acquisition and site prep, as well as facade enhancements. And in phase 2, it goes to land acquisition. We anticipate that December 2017 will be the phase 1, and phase 2 moves out to 2019, but in fact, that's just so that they have some breathing space. The goal is to make it more timely than the 2019 date. If you were to look at a single unit, it would look somewhat like this. There is a shared green space in the area. The orientation is towards the street, which is something that you want. Our downtown design standards say that, although the downtown design standards do not apply here. Neighborhood design standards do. The Antelope Valley Land Use Study does apply, and this conforms with both of those. But one of the ideas that you want is eyes on the street and an orientation towards the street. I think the city over time has come to regard the slip-in kinds of apartments, which don't have that, as being perhaps cost-effective for its time, but not as amenable to neighborhood relationships that the orientation that's done here will have. The developers here, there'll be some comments about the design aspects from the designer and also from the developers. Can I answer any questions?
Questions? John?
Yes, Mr. Landis, this may not be the exact right time, but when we talk about tax increment financing with residential, as you recall, a couple of years ago, there was an area in North 56th Street, and there'd been a lot of discussion with the Lincoln School Board and so forth, the school system, about that. And if you could just perhaps
Sure.
go through a little bit of the history and just how this is
Different than that, you bet. Because it is different. And in fact, the flag did get raised. It was a number of years ago, about 10 years ago, about now.
Time flies.
What's that?
Time flies.
Yes, it does. The project on 56th Street contemplated new, separate, single-family facilities, like a subdivision. And the city, in order to get infrastructure to the area, agreed to a tax increment financing plan for that area. These public schools said this: this is not an area that has a long history in which there have been buildings that have been paying taxes for decades and who are now old, tired, and are in need of being replaced. We don't have a concern about that. What we do have a concern is new single-family homes, like a subdivision, that will produce kids for our schools, and then we won't have the tax base to support those kids as we have increased costs. Although I was not present at the time, and it predates me, the city basically said, we understand, and we will be informed and instructed by what you've told us. In the intervening time, while we don't check every project with them, we do quite commonly have some form of informal exchange, tell them about projects. But we have not done the kind of thing again that the public schools objected to at that time. I will say this: our own Lincoln Public Schools have sent a letter of support to the legislature this year, saying, look, you don't need to disturb the underlying rules and regulations for TIF on our behalf. We have a good working relationship with the city, and we do not object to the way that things have been administered. And Councilman, we haven't done a second time what we did to produce that ire, and this project wouldn't fit that bill. This is an area that is dilapidated, is run down, and has had many decades of at least some of the buildings here paying taxes. So it's not new, fresh subdivision residential. Something that we understand now, and we have not brought forth since that one time.
Thank you. Jane?
Dave, could you please go over again what the TIF funds are going to be used for on this project? I know you said it, but you went through it
Sure,
quickly.
I was speaking quickly, wasn't I? There are 2 phases, and the list is different for each phase. In the first phase, it's site acquisition, site prep, which is demo, alley paving, streetscape, and facade enhancements. As you can see, there are some high-end building materials that are being used in this, and I just assume that the designer explain that to you if you'd like. And phase 2 is acquisition. It is a part of the problem of developing in an older area in which there are many plots of land to assemble the amount of land necessary to do a project. And it's not uncommon for or for sellers of the land to see the project coming. And if you have to acquire 8 pieces of property, for example, you might easily be able to establish a sensible, rational market for 3, 4, 5 of them. But 6, 7, and 8 know it's coming, and that makes that property expensive. It's a problem I think we have in the Antelope Valley because of the Assurity project. The Assurity project had to assemble 16 different pieces of land. And at the end, you can imagine what was done. But when you have 14 pieces of property and there's one right smack dab in the middle, you're trapped by that. It is important to note that in the definitions of blighted and substandard, one of the factors that indicates the need for help in community redevelopment is the existence of multiple sites, particularly small sites. It's not a problem that the market has at the edge of the city where you can buy as much land as a farmer will sell, and from one buyer. Here, you've got that problem, which is why the site acquisition is important here. And you'll particularly see it in these kinds of settings.
Thank you.
Carl?
Thank you. Mr. Landis, you mentioned alleys are a part of that regime, so it doesn't show on the photo you have up here, but garages for these units will be located in the backs of the units, so an alley is necessary to provide access to parking. Is that the way this works?
Yes, although since the designer's here, can I ask them to respond to how the access to the parking is? If you were to take a look at this structure, I believe this is the garage in the back. Any other questions?
Questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, my name is Tom Houston. My address is 233 South 13th Street, Suite 1800. Appearing before you today on behalf of Antelope Square LLC, which is a joint venture of Assurity Life Insurance Company and NeighborWorks Lincoln. With me today is Brett West, who with Assurity, and also Sean Reba from NeighborWorks. Dave has a very thorough explanation of the redevelopment agreement. I just want to hit a couple high points in addition to that. Dave did highlight the fact that one of the challenges of this kind of project is the assembly process. The Antelope Square has assembled 8 sites for this project. Would have preferred to have assembled 9 or 10, but at some point you have to move on and don't make make perfect the enemy of good. And we still think we have a very good project, notwithstanding the fact that there were a couple sites that just didn't want to sell. Of the 24 units, we believe that we've broken it into 2 phases for absorption purposes, just so that the sales do not have to all occur simultaneously, and I think that makes some sense. It's a more conservative approach. We hope it's seamless. We hope it's just one project, one phase, one construction phase, but we do break it up into 2 different components for timing and sequencing purposes. The other thing I did want to address is really the relationship of the market rate units to what we call the qualified buyer units. Of the 24 units, at least 10 will be for qualified buyers, which is defined as individuals and families making no more than 80% of area median income. And the only distinction will be made on the financing side. There's no distinction on the design or amenities or any of the other attributes. The units primarily are 2 and 3 bedroom units, each which will have a basement, attached garage at the rear that will be alley loaded, and then a front porch and a deck. Mr. Landis has described the use of the tax increment financing, the total of $825,000. The one good thing about the approach on residential TIF is that sale prices really determine values. And a lot of redevelopment projects, we're having to use projections on what the county assessor may value properties at. With residential structures like these, we think we're fairly confident that the market is really established at the sale process itself. So we're comfortable with the numbers, and we think we used a very conservative calculation. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have with regard to the project. I'm going to reserve any design questions to Brett West, who is involved in the design.
Questions for Tom? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Brett West with Assurity, 3042 Sheridan Boulevard. I'll talk briefly because those guys did a good job and I was here not too long ago. So, but I do want to cover a couple of questions that are received. Go ahead and shoot the camera for me. The 2 phases, just to be clear, phase 1 is 10 units and it is primarily facing the south. We were able to acquire the Thomas Auto site, which is one of the more expensive sites that we had to acquire per square foot. That is in phase 2 and has been some concern of the neighbors in the neighborhood. So we were very happy to pick that up in the second phase. And then phase 2 over here will face the creek, which we feel there's probably more of a market rate opportunity there. So we're very much looking forward to moving the market as the project proceeds. A couple of questions about the facade improvement questions. I wanted just to show this again. A couple of things in the design. We do have garages along the back, and as I mentioned in the urban design committee review, on the back side we are looking at giving everybody the opportunity to have an outdoor porch and deck on the back side as well over the garages. So we're going to structure it such that they can add that as an amenity, because you really, in living like this, one of the things you don't have is a backyard. You have a shared backyard, but you don't have your own private space. So if that's important to you and you want to add that on, that's an amenity that will be optioned into it. You can see also the additions of the porch through the design. We always had front porches, but one thing we really spent time on is dealing with the corners and adding wraparound porches on the corner units and extending them a little bit. So as you turn from one front street to another front street, we really wrap the corner. That was important. I think this is probably one of the better images. We still are working through the final design, but you can see the brick which is added into the design of the project. We're using modern materials. So hardy board, we're looking at using a material that kind of looks like weathered cedar, which is a little bit more expensive, but that's our intent, to be more urban and kind of lead into downtown. And so those are some of the facade improvements where we are going to be utilizing some of those TIF dollars. So the porches are pretty expensive per square foot, and unfortunately in sales comps, they don't count the front porch. So that's something that we are looking to bring to the project, hopefully to get people walking up and down that corridor, interacting, and as they walk to the park right next door, that they feel welcomed along that corridor. Any questions?
Questions for Brett?
None.
All right. Thank you. Sean, are you coming up? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
Against or for?
Let's do proponents first and then opponents.
Honorable City Council members, good evening. My name is Joe Shaw. I live at 2311 Q Street. We are big fans of our neighborhood. We love living adjacent to one of the nation's best urban parks, where we go to walk, enjoy the amazing landscaping and public art. And now we have a great restaurant, a world-class restaurant right by us. So we wholeheartedly support the Antelope Square project. We believe the synergy created by this project and the Antelope Creek Valley townhomes where we live will be a needed boost that could kickstart improvements throughout our neighborhood. Our homeowners association and neighbors enthusiastically support the development of the Antelope Square project. We also support the work that NeighborWorks is doing. We're happy to have their strong presence in our neighborhood. We urge you to improve our health, well-being, and quality of life by approving this project. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Carl.
Don't go away so fast. Okay. Thank you for being here and for your support. Is there something about your background that might interest this body?
Well, I moved here over a year ago from the city of Huntington Beach, where I was on the city council there. I was also a planning commissioner and a public works commissioner. I'll just tell you that the homes that I live in now, the Antelope Creek Valley townhomes, I never had the chance to approve a project that I think is as awesome as the place where I live now. And I think that if NeighborWorks and Assurity are going to do as good a job on this project that is proposed tonight as they're doing on the project that I live in now, I think you guys are going to approve it because it's a great project.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cindy.
Mr. Shaw, before you
Yes.
leave. Okay, so as I know, out in California, they put your name all over the projects, don't they? Like everything that has concrete, they inscribe your name in when you're on the city council?
Not a housing project, though.
Well, welcome to Nebraska.
Thank you very much. I do have my name on a skate park, so I'm very happy about that.
Is it in Huntington Beach?
It's in Huntington Beach, yes.
Is it at the beach, at the pier?
No, it's not at the pier.
Okay, I'll be looking next time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other proponents, please go forward.
I'm Tim Francis. I live at 2511 T Street. Great project. It reinforces everything we've been doing down there for the last 40 years with block grant money. It'll be a nice thing for the tax base. It's all the right players, all doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
Terry Pope Gonzalez. You use big $10 words. Proponent means for it?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I'm for it or against it. I just have a question about the TIF. He says, we all know that I don't care for Dave Landis. He shoved me and nobody did anything about it. I still remember you putting your hands on me in this office, in this building. Anyway, he said site acquisition. And so I've been taking notes, a lot of notes. Site acquisition. So that really means that the TIF money, and I'm just Joe Blow, I know nothing. TIF money, that is site acquisition, is financing like a bank. Is that correct? I got this right?
We'll get that.
Site acquisition. Or you can send it to me in writing, because that's what Jeff Kirkpatrick said, everything has to be in writing. So I want to read a letter. I did show it to Carl. Because when everybody did the stuff that they did over at my house, we had all this fancy stuff going on. Nothing happened like they said. State of Nebraska, I'm real anal about real stuff. That's what it says, October 6, 1999. The Gonzalez family, 349 South First Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68508. Dear Joe, Martin, and Terry, this is from the state of Nebraska, Office of the Governor. Thank you for contacting me in regards to your concerns with the demolition derby that took place in your neighborhood, 10 blocks from the governor's mansion. I can certainly understand your frustration with something like this taking place so close to your home. This particular issue is one that would be handled by city officials, so my office has forwarded a copy of your letter to Lincoln Mayor Don Wesley. I regret I cannot be more assistance to you, but I want to assure you that this situation is not being overlooked. Again, thank you for writing and sharing your concerns. Sincerely, Mike Johans, Governor. Now, actually, I didn't write anything. I stood 8x10 pictures and I wanted to know why it was allowed in Lincoln, Nebraska, 10 blocks from the governor's mansion. Now I have a concrete company. So which would have been better, demolition derby, concrete company? I'm just saying when they come up and they do all their fancy stuff, who really makes sure it happens? I hear you beeping. You know, I really didn't come today. Oh, that's okay. Listen, I didn't come. Please, nobody put me on the internet. I got 9 million people listening to me. No, listen, I don't want anybody listening to me. I want to be left alone. I just want to retire. So here is my letter, if anybody needs to see it. The dust is from today, because we can't even do anything without the dust. And the bite mark, I have a rescue husky, and every time she wants me to see something, she brings it, and it's bitten. So, but anyway, so in 1999, and you know why this happened? I worked for Stephanie Johans. So she's the one who got me to her husband. Now, of course, the mayor, Don Wesley, did nothing. The city council did nothing, and here we are. It's 2016. So I really hope everything works, and I hope that all those houses are nice and all that kind of stuff, but who keeps track? Make sure somebody tells me about the site acquisition, because to me, those are $10 words, and all that means is that the TIF money is the bank who holds the mortgage. Now, that's not how TIF money is supposed to work, right? So see, and everybody sent me all this TIF stuff, which I went through everything. Site acquisition that is done with TIF money is the same as a bank coming in, right? And if not, somebody explain it to me so I can understand, so I can tell the people that live by me in their language, not your $10 words. I'm already on here. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thank you much. Oh, and I should say honorable and all those nice things. I should say all those things, but I'm too angry at you. So
I think Mr. Landis can verify it, but the site acquisition is where the TIF proceeds will go to help pay for the acquisition of the site, to buy the property.
but still, it's like a bank.
No, it's
No?
outright purchase.
Okay, so the TIF, okay, if TIF money outright purchases something, then that means it's discrimination if you don't do it for another neighborhood, right? If another neighborhood should have that TIF money, it's discrimination.
I think that's for our city attorney to address.
Send it to me. Oh, you know, don't send it to me in writing, Jeff, because you and I have conflict of interest. Have somebody else send it to me.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
Question?
Let's take testifiers
Okay.
first, and then we'll do staff questions. Next testifier, please. If anybody else wishing to speak to this item?
Yeah,
Come
you can
forward,
come up,
please.
Jane.
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. We don't have any problem with the development. Our problem is with the TIF. I'm shocked that Lincoln Public Schools sent a letter in support of using a TIF for this. Their board has spoken openly and been quoted in the newspaper that they're very concerned about how the use of the TIF is going to take money from them and that will not have it available to them. So I don't know who approved all that. The other issue is giving a TIF to wealthy people. Now, Nelnet, in particular, donates to a lot of causes. Maybe they should stop doing their donations and save the money so they don't have to ask the taxpayers for money. The state has 6 bills in the legislature about the community development law, and it directly allows them to have some say-so in how you're handing out the TIF. It might be wise to look up what those bills are. I did give you a letter from Senator Groen, which said that they had their eye on Lincoln and other cities in the state and how they're using the TIF. Another item is the focus on the downtown area rather than out in the other areas of town, which causes resentment among the community. All you have to do is read the letters to the editor and find out that a lot of people are not happy with the way you are handing taxpayer money to downtown and not taking care of some of the things in the outer sections. The man talked about the safety downtown. He's lived here a year. I won't refute his testimony, but I would like for him to look at the fact that other people who have lived here and who read the newspapers find that this is not a safe area of town, that there are a lot of kinds of crimes that are being committed down there. So we would not be in favor of using this amount of a TIF for wealthy companies. We see it as bringing difficulty on you in how you're going to award TIF, because the state is watching what goes on down here. And I think and also it was pointed out that some of you may have received donations from developers. I didn't look at that, but I did look at what the mayor has gotten. And I don't know, I haven't gone into whether any of you have received donations from developers. But to me, that would seem like a conflict of interest for you to even vote on this if you have. The TIF will hurt Lincoln Public Schools. And so if they support this, the only thought that a rational person could have is that they're going to raise the taxpayers' tax for LPS, which already gets 60% of it, of the property tax basis in town. So think about all those things. I'm sure you're going to vote for it, but
1 minute.
It's important for you to know that many eyes are on you, that the state can come in and write legislation that will cause you to have less freedom about that. I'm not sure whether you would be concerned about that, or you would just wait until it happened and then see what would develop. But I would hate to see that. I would like to have confidence that you would be careful in how you hand out the TIF, and that you would monitor yourselves rather than having the state come in to do so.
Questions for Jane? Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak to these items, please come forward. Staff questions.
I would love to have Sean Reba from NeighborWorks come up and ask you a few questions.
Hi, Sean Reba, NeighborWorks Lincoln. Address is 4411 North Park Boulevard.
Thanks for being here today, Sean. One of the noteworthy aspects of this project is the mixed income levels of the homeowners who you intend to sell these places to. Brett talked about how at least 10 of the units, or maybe it was Tom, 10 of the units will be for qualified buyers. And NeighborWorks has as part of its mission this work. Can you speak a little bit about how you will support some of the folks who will be purchasing homes through the Qualified Buyer Program, what you will be doing to help make that a successful endeavor for folks who haven't gone through it before?
Excellent question. Thank you. First of all, I hope that you took note. One of the things that we value most about our work is we really want to make sure that we're engaging the community and walking them through the process. So we value very much the input of residents when it comes to these sorts of projects. With that said, the income eligible units we offer for our home buyers, we offer a comprehensive 9-hour homebuyer education course, folks that are of 80% median income or lower, I believe, and I don't quote me on this, but I think a family of two is around 47,000. Family of four, maybe about 54 or 5 is kind of what their income level would be. And through that program, then they would get down payment and closing cost assistance for this particular project, which then is forgiven after 10 years.
So that helps with stability and.
Yes.
Okay.
We believe that the best way to do neighborhood revitalization is to really try to diversify income levels. And like the Antelope Creek Village, Mr. Shaw spoke about, really strengthens and brings up the entire neighborhood. We believe it's the best way to stabilize that by diversifying incomes to the area. So,
Great, thank you.
hopefully I answered your question. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Sean? All right, thank you. Any other staff questions? All right, we'll move on to the next items.
All right, next are items 31 through 33. They are approving the SSH Architecture Redevelopment Agreement between the city and Kevin and Mary Hiddle relating to the redevelopment of property located at 6234 and 6240 Ballard Avenue for the construction of a new approximately 10,800 square foot building, amending the fiscal year 15-16 CIP to authorize and appropriate $110,000 in TIF funds for the SSH Architecture Redevelopment Project, and authorizing the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the SSH Architecture Redevelopment Project.
Members of the City Council, David Landis, Urban Development Department Director and the applicant in this case. This is a much smaller project. The last one was about $5.5 million. This is about $1 million. There are TIF funds. It's a little over $100,000, about $110,000. This is a project that didn't go to the Urban Design Committee, it went to the Historic Preservation Commission. And the reason is because Havelock is a landmark district, and if you're within 300 feet of a landmark district, your project goes to the Historic Preservation Commission, which, by the way, voted to approve the project 6-0 in a recent meeting. The design of this is an ongoing conversation between Mr. Hiddle, who is an architect, and the city. One of the things that we were interested in the development of the project was that it support, in general, the feeling of Havelock. And towards that end, the frontispiece of the structure has variation to it. It's almost as if, it looks almost as if it was 3 buildings. And the reason is, if you drive Havelock Avenue, a place that I lived for about 35 years, the storefronts are shorter, smaller. There might be 6 or 8 to a block. There isn't one long, expansive infrastructure or building. And so this has the same technique that was used in the Haymarket with the Tool House project. The Tool House project is one large building, but it's broken up visually into 3 sections that approximate the size of the warehouses that were there traditionally in the Haymarket. Same idea here. Second thing that in the conversations between architect Hiddle and the city was the use of larger windows, particularly here on the first floor, because if you drive down Havelock Avenue, there are large windows in the stores. Now, this isn't going to be a large retail piece. This is 3,600 square feet of office space and 7,200 square feet of residential, namely 8 2-bedroom units. But that has a feel for the kind of transparency that you have in downtown Havelock. It's not uncommon for the Havelock shops to have some kind of awning. And so here again, in an attempt to reach as much of the feel, if you will, at least some of the elements, that was taken into account in the design. And here in the front, it is hoped, although we don't have an exact commitment at this point in the city design purposes, but we're hoping for angled parking, which is, again, something else that's on the Havelock Avenue. The construction is hopefully this coming year. This will be an interfund borrowing small TIF project, but the redevelopment agreement does maintain the current practice that we have of making the developer assume all costs or any shortfall that might occur in the TIF process. In other words, taxpayers do not stand behind the $110,000 if the taxes don't produce that amount of assistance. The developer will do that. So this, although it uses a slightly different mechanism because it has a smaller amount of money, has essentially the same outline or framework that we use in our TIF agreements these days. It's something that we learned from Omaha about 8 years ago and have been making a steady practice ever since. Mr. Hiddle's here. He'd be happy to describe the project and his own plans, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
By the way, before John, you asked me the question, there was a comment recently about whether or not we use TIF outside the downtown, and we do. We used it on 35th and Holdridge to start some multi-use buildings there. We supported a business on 21st and Yolande, the PCE company, as they wanted to make some improvements in public infrastructure. The Creekside Village that occurs on 10th and Military. We are interested in building the city. Now, it needs to be in a blighted and substandard area, and that's quite likely to be an older core area. But the Piedmont Shopping Center was about 50 years old when it was initiated, and now we've updated that. So we do work throughout the city, but only in areas that are blighted and substandard. And we use this tool when developers have projects that we think further civic interests. Now, I'm sorry, John, I think I interpreted.
The overhead back on, please. I wanted to make a comment. What you had right there in your hand, please. The drawing of the schematic. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to renew my request if we stop doing these big nodes, because they're nothing but snowplow targets, and we're just having so much damage around the city with the snowplows for the removal. And they look great, and I know there's some functional purpose to help pedestrian cross the street, but it looks so bad when we get nice new projects and you suddenly get them chewed up by the snowplows, and those catch a lot of snowplows. So just renewed my request that we do fewer of those.
I've heard that message before, and there's rarely an opportunity that we both don't have a chance to review that together. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this item, please come forward.
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. Again, the TIF is being handed out. We don't have any problem with the project. I don't know that these people are in the category with Nelnet or Speedway, but we are very concerned about the TIF. Now, Mr. Landis has chosen to speak to some of the issues that I raised, which tells me that there may be some issues here that are worth following up. The project looks good. When I examined 2 files from the Department of Urban Development to see what kind of proof there was, there was no proof. And I did mention this in my letter to Senator Groen and his colleagues, which is handing out money to people that you don't know whether they need it or not. TIF does take from the city coffers. There's no doubt about that. It takes from the LPS coffers, even though they wrote a letter that they're in support of the Antelope project downtown. our concern, many people's concern in this who understand what the TIF is, that you are taking money that will only be made up when you use it for a TIF. It could only be made up by raising taxes on the taxpayer. There's no denying that. And of course, all the TIFs that you are handing out now will have an effect on the next city council members down the road and how they're going to manage their income. The belief is that this is going to bring in a bigger amount of taxpayer or economic development tax. You have no proof of that. Loans are hard to get, and low-income people are not going to be able to get loans because they're very stringent requirements now that there weren't even 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know about the loans for some of the TIF projects that you have approved, but some of these companies could default. It's a matter of thinking big ideas that in many respects you won't be responsible for taking care of if there's a problem. Many economic people think we're going to be in stagflation, which means little or no growth. Businesses are going to have big problems, possibly, unless you're an Apple company or something like that with a lot of power and a lot of money. It's very discouraging that you aren't careful about how you hand this out, but you just think of the development and not what, it's like immediate gratification, and you don't know what's going to be happening down the road. Think about yourself and how you manage your economics and for yourself. And we encourage you not to be careless with the taxpayers' money.
1 minute.
Which many people think is happening, who understand the negative side of handing out a TIF to every Tom, Dick, and Harry who comes forth. It's kind of like everybody knows that it's candy, free candy down at City Hall, and even people who have not proven that they need the money are getting it. This isn't prudent or wise. And as thinking people, responsible people, we urge you to look at how you're handing out TIFs and approving projects.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward.
Don't you wish I just stayed home? Terry Pope Gonzalez, is that true? If somebody goes belly up, who pays? Somebody explain that to me. Is that true?
We'll get that answer for you.
Okay, because I mean, I don't know this stuff. That's why I'm asking you guys. And Carl, when you were kind of laughing, I was kind of laughing because she gets too close to the mic. Okay, and somebody on the internet said I have great mic skills. I could be a manager for WWE. But I didn't know what WWE is. Guess what it is? All-Star Wrestling. Yeah. So anyway, would somebody please let me know? Because if somebody goes belly up, do my taxes have to take care of that TIF? Okay? Thanks. Oh, I'm supposed to say honored people, right? Is that what I'm supposed to say?
Mr. Landis? Anyone else wishing to speak? I'm sorry. I think we're.
There were a couple of questions and comments that are worth talking about. The short answer to the question raised by Ms. Pope Gonzalez is that the taxpayer does not make that up. The agreements basically say this: if there is a shortfall, the developer is responsible for that. And if the bond holder cannot secure it from the developer, then the bond holder is at risk. And the city is in neither of those two positions. So the city is not at risk, nor are other taxpayers at risk for the financing arrangements contained in these agreements. And I think the question that was asked was, or raised was, we don't know the outcome of the process. It's in the future, and we're not sure what happens. We do know the outcome, and we know its financial implications to the city. Although we have more than this, I do recall in my head the first 15 projects that the city did with tax increment financing. Those 15 projects came into the TIF program, adding totally about a little under $16 million of valuation. Those 15 pieces of property, if you will, were paying $337,000 a year in taxes. Add them all together, that was the amount of taxes. We then did a TIF program with those 15 projects, and we diverted from the normal course of conduct $6.3 million to support those 15 projects from occurring. In some cases, they were as short as 8 years. In other cases, they went as long as 15 years. When they came out of that period of time where the money is used for the project, the tax valuation had grown from $15 million to $105 million, and today it's more than $170 million on what was $15 million of valuation. That's a huge valuation growth, and they've been paying taxes for a number of years at that higher valuation. The last time I checked, and it's not current, it's about 2 years old, the total amount of what you might call new taxes, that is to say, not counting the $337 per year, that stays steady, and that was always paid, always collected, always distributed, still is. This is for that higher valuation, the new valuation, and it's been occurring year after year. Each year, that property has paid about $3.4 million every year. And the amount of time that when you add all those projects up, and you take a look at the amount of new taxes they've paid, that number is just about at $30 million. So instead of $337,000 a year of taxes, we now get about $3.4 million of taxes on those, adding them all up, those 15 projects. Of that $30 million, and this doesn't count the money that we're always receiving during that, the $337,000. This is the new valuation growth, and now over the years that we've been accepting it. The schools district's gotten $20 million of that money. They get about 65% of the outcome. So they get 2/3 of this money. The city's gotten about 15% of that. The county's gotten 15% of that, and the NRD as well. In other words, the rate of return on the outside of this is not a matter of conjecture. We know this because we've run the numbers. And the rate of return and those 15 projects is averaging 49% per year.
Carl.
Yes, and Dave, this particular project that we're talking about is, as I understand it, it's currently 2 empty lots behind Misty's.
There were houses, they have been demolished, that's right.
And so it's
and they've
not,
been empty for a while and undeveloped in that way.
So there's no one living there, there's no one working there. It's
We're not displacing people,
Yeah.
no. One of the nice things, by the way, design-wise, is a whole lot of eyes on the Havelock Park. And eyes on that park would be it's a helpful thing to do.
Dave, do you bring us every TIF proposal that comes through your door?
No. I asked myself that question the other, I'm going to say maybe 6 months ago, and my staff and I sat down and we thought of about 12 projects that have been brought to us that we said no for one reason or another. Areas of town that we didn't think were blighted and substandard. Areas of town that probably were blighted and substandard, but it was essentially undeveloped land with that had some development around it. Various uses that we didn't think necessarily grew the city in the way that we did. And a question that I asked myself more recently was, what happened in those 12 situations? None of the projects were built. Now, one of them wanted to build a hotel. Wanted to build a hotel a little bit towards the airport on some land that was undeveloped. But there are airports out there. There's, hotels that are out there and been doing it, so we passed on it. They didn't build there, they built in Omaha. They did build a hotel. They just didn't build it in Lincoln. So they're anecdotal, and most of those are confidential. Developers don't want to tell people about projects that didn't work, or what their plans were, or what they own, so I'm not particularly comfortable in giving you specifics, but when we put our heads together, we could come up with about 12 examples of times where we said no, and developers wanted to. And I find it interesting that in none of those cases was the projected project done without TIF.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much. We've already had. The applicant is the only one that's able to make a rebuttal. The applicant, the person that's, yes. Thank you. All right, that'll conclude the public hearing.
All right, we can move into the voting session. Public hearing resolutions. Item 22, accepting the report of new and pending claims against the city and approving disposition of claims set forth for the period of January 16 through 31st, 2016, introduced by Gaylor Baird.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. All right, call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge, Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Public hearing ordinances, second reading are items 23 through 33. Ordinances, third reading, item 34, establishing an enhanced employment area necessary to impose an occupation tax as part of a development project at South Point Pavilions, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy.
We do have a motion to amend on this one.
All right, we have somebody move the motion to amend.
I'll move it.
Second?
Let him move it first.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, this is just a change in section number from the statute, 18-2116 /2 to 18-2142.04, parentheses 2.
Second.
Seconded by Jane. Discussion on the motion to amend. All right, call the roll on the motion to amend.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Okay, discussion on the main motion or any staff questions? All right, no discussion on the main motion?
Calling all these together, or?
We call them separately, so this is the enhanced
item
employments.
34.
But if you have comments to make, it might be good to make them now, and then we'll get through the rest of the items. No comments on this?
Well, I'll just add that we received a detailed memo from the administration about this as an enhanced employment area owing to the number of new jobs that will be created through this expansion of South Point Pavilions, jobs that pay in the neighborhood of $50,000. And I think there are 50 of them that we're being told will be newly created as a result of this project.
Any other comments? Cindy?
Yeah, I'm excited about this project. I have asked a ton of questions, and every one of them has been addressed, and I'm very appreciative of that. And do you want me to go ahead and talk about my position on the next one, or you want just this one?
I think we can talk about all positions since there are a package, and then we can just vote on them. I think
Okay,
it's
thank you.
allowable.
Yeah. I had some difficulty with the turnback tax because I love the project, hate taxes, but as I looked at the project, I visited with the parties that were involved. I visited with the businesses that were there, some businesses at South Point. And this is they indicated to me, the businesses, that they expected to do a very large volume of business with Shields building this amazing project, and that a number of them did not even, they indicated they did not even expect or know for certain whether they would be charging that to the shoppers. They were excited about the volume of tax, and I was excited to hear that, and that this is going to be a destination for a lot of people from outside of Lincoln, and so I think it's going to be a great draw, and so I'm going to vote in favor of the ordinances.
Carl.
Thank you, and I agree with Cindy completely. It's one of those real significant proposals here. It's on a little bit smaller scale. It's a lot like the arena, and the development that happened in the West Haymarket certainly would not have happened if not for the arena, and certainly the continued development and growth of South Point will happen directly as a result of this improvement. So I think it's a great opportunity, not only to improve Shields, but also to provide some other retail opportunities that citizens in Lincoln don't currently enjoy.
John, then Jane, and then Larry.
Well, I'm kind of the old guy on the block, but I know one of the first major projects that I had the pleasure of viewing when I came on council in 1999 and 2000 was the opening of South Point, and so it's interesting to see it now elevate to a new higher level with expansion, and I'm looking forward to the economic impact that it's going to continue to make on Lincoln, and so I wish you all well, and it will be exciting to see this come about.
Jane.
Well, I want to thank the development team for actually reaching out to the neighbors on multiple occasions and working through some of their concerns. And I also want to thank them and city staff and Randy Hoskins for working through some of the traffic congestion concerns that were identified by the neighbors. And really want to thank Mark Palmer, who will continue to work with Randy on trying to come up with the optimum ways of moving the traffic that we certainly hope, increased traffic that we certainly hope this center will bring, and the attractions that it will offer a lot of people, not only in Lincoln, but certainly outside of Lincoln and Lancaster County, and hopefully the state, and hopefully outside of the state. So I know as a retailer, moving our customers in and out safely through our centers and our businesses is very important, and I appreciate them taking the added time and continuing to find the best and optimum ways to do that.
Okay, I'm going to go Roy, then Larry.
I'd like to say that this has been a pleasure dealing with everybody involved in this project. It's a project, the right project done the right way. Many people in the community have been telling me they want to see large projects, developments outside of the downtown area. Well, folks, here it is. It's a huge investment in our city, and that will pay dividends to the city as a whole, as well as the developers. I'm fully supportive.
Larry.
Just to follow up on both your points, Cindy mentioned the businesses at South Point who are in support, and we have been reassured both verbally and in writing that there's no opposition from the retailers at South Point to this expansion. And there is this sense, I think, in our community that the downtown area is being invested in heavily at the expense of other market hubs in Lincoln, and we've actually heard that from a testifier on another item this afternoon. We do need commerce to thrive in other parts of town, and if we can expand the South Point Mall, support that expansion, and make it a more attractive destination, then it will be yet another part of Lincoln that will attract newcomers. So I intend to support this project as well.
All right, so it's no secret to the developers that occupation taxes are not my favorite thing. And while I appreciated working with everybody through this process and hearing about it since in different iterations, I just don't. I just can't favor the occupation tax structure in doing this development, and my reason is I don't think that we should be inserting ourselves as government into a private development. I really believe that this is a landlord-tenant issue. I appreciate all the time that the developers and their attorney have spent with me, and talking to me and helping me work through this. It really was a struggle for me. I think they know that from my conversations with them, because I do believe that this will be a destination in the city, especially since my 6 colleagues are going to be supporting it and I'm not. But I have a philosophical disagreement here, and I'm going to stand on it, and I'm going to vote no. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
This is on item 34. Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
No.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. Item 35 is authorizing a 1% occupation tax effective January 1st, 2017 on gross receipts for retail establishments at South Point Pavilions within the designated enhanced employment area to be used to pay for construction and maintenance of a public parking garage to be located at South Point Pavilions, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. All right, call the roll, please.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
No.
Gaylor Baird?
I want to support this, but I thought that there was going to be a motion to amend brought forward by the applicant. Is that, do you have that
I don't
available?
have anything.
We did have one on the first item.
You
Is
did.
there a amendment?
I apologize, since this was not a public hearing, I didn't know when I got
Okay.
to speak.
I'm sorry.
And I normally don't get to speak at this time. We have a motion to amend I will hand out. I know several of you are, while you're expressing your support, and we're greatly appreciative of your support. This word occupation tax is troubling because that has TAX that goes with it at times. So this is a motion that, for your consideration, where the present ordinance that's in front of you gives the option to the business, or the tenant in this case, to pay and show the occupation tax on a receipt to the customer. Doesn't have to, it's optional. And under state statute, you have the authority, if you so want to set up boundaries or procedures on how that process would work. This is saying that if they do elect to put it on their receipt, that they should mark it down and as a parking assessment. So that instead of using any other words. Now, under the law, they can use literally any words they want to describe it. They don't have to use the word occupation tax. They could use anything, and we checked in with the Department of Revenue and others that administer occupation tax across the state, and they see all sorts of words being described by the tenant. So this is your call. You don't have to do this, but we think it might help clarify for some of you that do not use the word occupation tax to go ahead and call it parking assessment. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Roy?
Point of order. So we are in the middle of voting.
Yes.
So now we have this in front of us. Can we stop, take a look at this motion, deal with it, and then vote again on the main motion?
I think we need our attorney.
I think it's within the power of this body to do that. I mean, the alternative would be to finish the vote, make a motion to reconsider, come back and amend it, vote on the amendment, presuming it passes, and then vote on the amended ordinance. It seems to me more efficient of your time just to stop the vote in progress, to take up the amendment, whether it passes or fails, then vote on the ordinance that is before you. But you can do it either way.
So do we need a motion to do that, or we can just do it?
You haven't got to the end of the vote. Not everyone has
Okay.
their vote recorded, so I think you can interrupt the voting procedure in this case and take an amendment.
I'll go ahead and move this motion to amend to add the line to section 3B that includes, and if such itemization is shown on a bill, receipt, or other invoice, it shall be labeled as a parking assessment.
Second.
I'll accept the motion in second, and we'll have discussion on the amendment, if there's any discussion on the amendment. Cindy?
Yes, I'd just like to point out that it does also clarify that each person engaged in the business, this is for the businesses, that they remain liable for the tax imposed, that they don't have to, as Mr. Seacrest said, they don't have to charge this tax. It just gives a consistent labeling. It appears to give a consistent labeling if they do decide that they're going to charge that tax on their receipts.
All right, any other comments? John?
Since we've got this motion to amend, I don't know if we need to have the opportunity for public hearing or not.
We don't, because we're in the voting session. We've had our public hearing. We don't have to
This-
hear a motion. We can make a motion once we're on in voting.
Okay.
Okay. Jane?
I have a question for Kent. Is it appropriate at this time?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay, so Kent, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused on this. So if, as a business, I am aware of this occupation tax, and if I wanted to pass it on to my customers, the mechanism that I choose, I could raise the price of my offerings that I have for the customers, or I can specifically list it on the receipt, and I would label it as parking assessment.
And there's a third one, I think Mr. Christensen pointed out last week. The business could just absorb it, not raise their prices, but just absorb it because their sales have increased so much that their margins on multiple sales now make up for any loss to them to absorb it.
So absent this amendment, the business could do that with or without this, except they would probably have called it an occupation tax?
They are, under state law, they could call it anything that's kind of rationally related to a description. They could call it an occupation tax, they could call it a parking charge, a parking fee. You know, in the arena case, it was, you know, an occupation tax on restaurants, hotels, car rentals. And they see a lot of those that just say arena fee, arena charge. So, I mean, it doesn't even relate to, you know, that it's for the hotel or the restaurant. So this is the power that the statute gives you to direct this if you would so like to direct it.
But let me clarify, so the business can call it still anything it wants, like parking?
Well, under this amendment, they would not. You would take that discretion away from them and they would call it a parking assessment.
Just in terms of practicality and logistics, that might be too long of a word to fit on your receipt, and it might get abbreviated inappropriately. Just an FYI. Because there's only so much space you have to designate, like, lettering.
Again,
Thought that through.
I'm not thought that through, you know, and if you want to call it a parking fee, you know, that's shorter than assessment.
I think so.
That would be another alternative for you to do. We do not want to create an embarrassment, that's for sure.
Could we amend it to say parking assessment or parking fee?
Yes, you could do that. You have that power too.
Amendment?
Is that a motion?
I move that we amend the amendment to give that business the option of writing parking assessment or parking fee.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Roy. Discussion on the motion to the motion.
I think either one makes it clear what this is paying for, and that's more transparent for shoppers at South Point.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, call the roll on the motion to the motion.
This is to amend the amendment.
Yes, amend the
Yes.
amendment.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
No.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1.
Okay. Discussion on the main, or the motion,
To amend.
the motion to amend.
Mhm.
All right. Call the roll on the motion to amend.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
No.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. Now on the main motion.
Main motion. Item 35. Yeah.
I'll just start all over. Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
No.
and Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. All right. Item 36, approving a development agreement between the city, Red Development, and Powder Mountain related to construction of a new Shield store and other retail space at South Point Pavilions, in addition to public parking garage within South Point Pavilions, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. Any motions to amend? All right. Call the roll, please.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
No.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. Item 37, authorizing the issuance of City of Lincoln South Point Pavilions Project tax allocation bonds in amount not to exceed $19,950,000, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. Any motions to amend? All right. Call the roll, please.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
No.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. Item 38, combined special permit, use permit 11H, application of Red Capital Management and Powder Mountain to reflect the redevelopment of several areas of the South Point Pavilions Shopping Center, including an increase in floor area, a reduction in the parking requirement, and an increase in building height located at the northeast corner of South 27th Street and Pine Lake Road, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Roy. All right. Mr. Secret.
Ms. Raybold has raised several questions about traffic and told us to go work harder, and we did go work harder with Public Works and Utilities and Randy. And just to be sure we're extra cautious here, the developer on their own is willing to build a right turn pocket. You're on South 32nd, you just came out of the roundabout, you're at the light at Pine Lake Road, and this would be a right turn that's southbound to westbound onto Pine Lake Road. Our traffic engineers, and I think Randy, both feel that this will add more capacity to the intersection, which is one of the issues that was important to the neighbors, and it's very important to South Point to get as Jane said, our customers in and out on time.
Questions?
Make the motion, Jane.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had made the motion. Okay. I make a motion to amend number 16R-25 to include the language that reads, "The permittee at its expense shall design and install a South 32nd Street southbound to westbound right turn lane onto Pine Lake Road to the satisfaction of Public Works and Utilities, and post a surety for this work."
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion. Cindy.
Point of clarification, this is for 16R23.
Oh, sorry.
Not 25.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
There you go.
Oh, I am sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. Call the roll, please, on the amendment.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge, Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. Any further discussion on the main motion? All right. Call the roll on the main motion.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then, we have the mayor's veto of resolution A-89497.
Do you need a
John?
I would move this item.
Second.
Second by Roy.
You move to do what to this item? The motion would be to override the mayor's veto?
Correct.
Okay.
Seconded by Roy.
Okay.
All right, discussion. John?
Well, yes, I originally brought this charter amendment forward, and really underlying it is the need for checks and balances. And I think that it's still important. What was interesting is, Nancy Hicks in one of her articles brought out that Omaha has substantially greater, their city council has substantially greater oversight than even what this would do. But I think that it's important that we have a process set up, and that's all this would allow the city council to do, is to define the process that the mayor would follow. Right now, the mayor can set up his own process, and he even can exempt himself from following that, which he has done. And I don't think that's proper in a democratic form of government. And I'm even disappointed that recently there was a construction management RFQ that went out that closed in mid-January, and is the most recent example of a way to circumvent this body. It was set up as a one-year contract with 3 one-year renewals, and had 15 projects in it, 4 of which were the new fire stations, which we know will take longer than a year. Had it been properly designated as a multi-year contract, then this body would have had the opportunity to even approve that one. And so I think that the bottom line is, and we had a 4-3 vote before. I know there's concern by several of my colleagues who opposed the initial amendment, but I think in our form of government and where we're at and the size of Lincoln, that this is a very, very reasonable and minor modification to the city charter, and that will just allow this body to define that process. So I encourage everyone to go along, and I respect what the mayor wrote. I think his comments weren't really on target here, but I hope that we can override this and move on and let the citizens decide, because all this is doing is putting it to a vote of the people.
Roy?
When Trent and Larry and I were up for election, there was a charter amendment on the ballot. And I recall pretty much the exact words of the mayor in encouraging that charter amendment to be voted on was, what are we afraid of? Let the people vote. And I just think we should let the people vote.
Other discussion? Cindy?
Thank you. I was disappointed with the mayor's veto. I don't think anyone was surprised that I was disappointed. But you know, the city goes to the people and asks for their money a lot, and that's not what this is about. The people have an interest in being involved in the policy of how that money is spent, and I feel very strongly that the people are entitled to have that voice, and that's why I voted in favor of the charter amendment to begin with. Unfortunately, I understand why the mayor has an interest in not wanting further oversight or checks or balances in this fashion. What I don't understand, and what I'm really concerned about, is that some of our colleagues have joined the mayor in a partisan fashion and have chosen to protect the interests of the mayor over the interests of the people in being able to be involved in their own policy.
Other comments? Jane?
Well, I am going to support to sustain the veto by the mayor, not because we have engaged in partisan politics, because we already have a proven process in place that works, and it works well. John has brought, and rightly so, about PACT. We have a process, but we do need greater accountability and communication and transparencies, and not necessarily a different process. My colleagues argue that we need authority and more checks and balances, and I question them. Authority to do what? What is out of balance that needs something to be checked? And what do you want to legislate, and how do you plan to enforce it? We've had these discussions ongoing for months about what is the appropriate process to engage in, and I think we all agreed that the executive order that the mayor has issued, has brought a wonderful process in place. And I think my colleagues have wonderful, good intentions, but what they have been proposing for some time for these last months also has some serious unintended consequences, such as delays in executing the contracts that the business groups have brought to our attention. And really, how is that efficient government? And why would we want to go backwards on a city that is growing? Our city has been exploding with growth. John just brought up the Omaha City Council. Well, yes, it's true. The Omaha City Council has oversight of a number of contracts that are outside of our charter obligations. But you got to keep in mind the city of Omaha has 14 positions. 7 of those are the elected city council members in Omaha. So that means they have 7 employees that support their administration, and one of the 7 is their lobbyist. Lancaster County Board has 11 positions. 5 of those are the elected county board, and they have 6 people that support them. But the difference with that is the county board also, in addition to the 6 support, they have a paid private lobbyist, so they have 7 positions. It's important to note that the Lancaster County Board is a completely different body. They have the administrative, executive, and legislative functions that are mandated by statute. That's what their job is. The City of Lincoln is not. The City Council of Lincoln has 8 positions. 7 of them you see right up here today. We're the elected officials. We have one administrative support. We do not have a private paid lobbyist. So the question to our taxpayers out there, one of these unintended consequences is somebody has to manage all these additional contracts that will be crossing our desks that we really don't have sufficient of time to process without additional staff. I'm not advocating that we hire more people. I'm saying that we already have a process in place where we don't need to have that obligation to hire more people. Creation of additional positions is not streamlining a process that we have in place. And I think it's something that our constituents want less government and not more, and they will hold us as stewards most accountable for that. So it's a little bit of surprise that my colleagues are standing behind this, and I see it as advocating inefficiencies, delays, and more staff for a problem that simply does not exist. I can honestly say that I've spent a lot of hours looking at all those contracts in an annual basis, and PC Sports is the only contract out of the thousands that was listed as an exception in the last 8 years. I know John had mentioned in your article, and I thought it was well argued, but he mentioned that our current mayoral system is autocratic. And I have to say, our current mayoral system works well. And I know that you mentioned that Mayor Beitler was claiming credit for all this explosive growth, but he rightly deserves credit for the transformation that has taken place in the Haymarket and the future growth that is going on throughout our city during his administration. There are so many accolades about our city that are fantastic that have happened during his watch. We're the number 8th happiest city and state, number 1 fastest growing state. We're number 5 significant economic development projects in the region. We're in the top 10 for best city to find a job in, top 10 best downtowns. We're in the top 10 cities of places to retire in, top 10 business cities to start a business in, and in top 10 cities to raise a family. The facts are indisputable. Again, the 2 preceding mayors, Mayor Colleen Sang and Don Wesley, also laid the foundation for this growth with the vision that they had for Antelope Valley. So I am defending the amazing progress that has been going on all around us. Our constituents have asked for, I hear it all the time as we're up here, they want more transparency and accountability. City council members have asked, and rightly so, for better communication from the mayor and the department directors on professional services contracts. My thought is, as a business person, if you don't measure it, then how can we possibly manage it? I know Councilmember Christensen has spoken very highly of the reporting process that forces all of us to have greater accountability. And later on, for first reading, is the reporting ordinance that I have been talking about as long as John has been talking about some of these revisions for the last 8 months. That law puts into law an obligation going forward, long after this mayor and this city council have moved on. It's a monthly reporting will give us greater accountability and greater oversight in what's going on. I can tell you, as a large business owner, we get daily reports and monthly analysis of income and expenses so we can verify that we are on course and on budget. We review and make adjustments as needed and in order to stay on track. And that's just simply business 101. I know John has stated repeatedly that his goal is not to delay, and he supports the current process of contracts, and he wants to enact reporting requirements. I think it truly is a waste of our taxpayer time and money pretending to solve a problem that simply doesn't exist. I, for one, will do everything I can to deliver on my promise to the taxpayers of more transparency. And I want to promise that we're going to deliver that with a reporting process that will hold each of the department directors accountable, and the mayor and us. Our constituents must hold each and every one of us, the mayor, for making sure that we bring the necessary and appropriate oversight and stewardship to the process. And the best way for us to do our job, to make a positive change, and to serve our constituents is to support the reporting ordinance that is being introduced today. Increasing cost to our taxpayers for more checks and balances and hampering the city's ability to quickly and efficiently execute contracts is a step backward. We shouldn't allow a lot of rhetoric to derail a reporting process that is clearly a best practice not only for business but for government. And to do so is a simple and practical solution to something that we all support. And I certainly will support and sustain the mayor's veto because we are moving our city forward, and that's what we should be doing.
Other comments? Larry?
So where's our common ground? John, you have raised the notion that greater council oversight of the system could be beneficial, and I think every single one of us agrees with that. I think that's our common ground. So I would say let's oversee the system, this process, more closely through the improved reporting that would be codified by the ordinance Jane is proposing on first reading today. And then let's take a look at that. Let's look at the evidence from the experience of utilizing that improved reporting process to drive our decision about whether or not any further steps are necessary. Because to me, it seems that good governance is finding the appropriate solution for the size of the issue that's before you. And as it stands right now, I don't think there's enough evidence that the charter amendment is an appropriate size solution to the issue. In my estimation, the proposed solution for reporting requirements on first reading is far more appropriate as a next step.
Carl.
Thank you. I appreciate all my colleagues, and it's, we've had, I don't know how many votes tonight, and near unanimous votes on everything we've done. Trent's been wrong a few times, but that's okay.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And in 25 years, I've been working for transparency in government. I've been on staff and a board member of Common Cause. I've worked in the state ombudsman's office, trying to make sure that government agencies are completely transparent, that they provide information to citizens about what they're doing so that they're able to understand processes is critical. It's absolutely critical to good government. And I think part of this process has helped to bring that forward. I think it's been productive that John has brought this issue to us. It's also been productive in terms of the response from the mayor's office and getting this information to us so that we know what is out there. And I think that's a great positive for all of us. But the issue today is whether we put this language in our city charter that could open the door to greater oversight of the council and professional service contracts. And I guess we could argue if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't think it's necessary because of the steps that have already been taken. I'm concerned myself. I'm not throwing anybody else under the bus, but I'm just concerned myself about time and the ability would have to be able to review contracts that come before us. I know when we get those multi-year contracts, it's thick of paper. I read them, some of them. I mean, it's a little bit of it, and most of it's boilerplate. And so, wading through all of that is not something, I guess, that I feel is something typically that we're called to do as a legislative body. There are costs associated with taking this move, making this move. As we think about the information that is gathered in those thick packets to present to council members, that takes a lot of staff time and energy to get all that stuff together. There's costs in terms of delays that projects have in going through this process, and us, even on a good time, it might take 3 weeks. If we've got a lot of questions or amendments, it might take longer. Then the cost to the citizens, delays of projects kind of in process. What does that mean? I live on P Street. I know what that would have meant to me and my neighbors and the businesses located along P Street if we'd had all of a sudden to have to slow it down and say, okay, no, you got to go through city council and get approval for this. In the meantime, businesses are struggling because their access is challenged. So there are just costs related to it, and I'm concerned about that. Lastly, I do think there are questions about our charter and what this means, and inconsistencies with what's in the charter now, and how this plays out in terms of our role being more limited towards legislative areas, and this seems to move us more toward the administrative area. And I think if we do make such a move, that it would need to go to the Charter Review Commission. So for all those reasons, I do hope that we're able to put something in place in terms of an ordinance that would require reporting. I think that's a great thing for us, but putting something in the charter, I can't go with that, and I will support the mayor's veto. Thank you.
Okay. Right now, the only process that we have by charter for contracts is the mayor picks above 25,000. That's it. That's what we have. And any mayor can set what their process internally is going to be by executive order. I disagree with the way we have our system now. I think that process should be an ordinance. I think that's transparency. I think the rules should be consistent. I think it should take a public hearing in order to change them. I think that would allow bidders to know the rules and what the rules could be. And this isn't about this mayor, but it shouldn't be up to any mayor to decide what the process should be by executive order. The rules should stay consistent between administrations. And I'm sorry that we have a disagreement on this case. Maybe we'll work on it and come back to it if we can all agree on that, or at least 5 of us maybe. But for right now, I'm disappointed that we can't send something to the voters that would give this body the ability to have a transparent process for how we would set the procurement rules, and maybe even something that addresses the concerns of my colleagues, that doesn't slow down the process, that doesn't put us in an administrative role, and that puts it so that everybody that is bidding with the city knows what the rules are and how they're going to be followed. Call the roll on the veto override.
Yes. Raybold?
No.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
No.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
No.
Motion fails 4-3. Next then are resolutions first reading, items 40 through 44. Ordinances first reading are items 45 through 48. And today is not an open mic day.
There, I'd move for adjournment.
Second.
All right. Second by Jane. Call the roll, please.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes,
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
we're adjourned.